stop what you're doing. Does your crosshair look like this? Well, my friend, it may be finally time for you to get a new crosshair. And let me show you how to do it. So, welcome to the video, my mini films, teeny films, films enthusiasts, whatever you guys want to call yourselves. I haven't thought of a name yet, but today I'm going to show you how do you pick a crosshair in Overwatch 2. Now, for most games, it's pretty simple. You can just use one crosshair because there's only really one style of gameplay. You could do that for Overwatch, depending on how you play the game. But if you don't have any crosshairs built into your monitor, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make your own custom crosshairs. Because in Overwatch, as you can see, there's a lot of different heroes, and honestly, every single one of them could have their own custom crosshair. And they do, Overwatch does try and make custom crosshairs for their heroes, but some of them suck. So we're going to go over what actually good crosshairs look like. Now, just generally speaking, how do you get into the screen where you can change your crosshairs? Press escape, or whatever your menu button is. Go to options. You want to be in controls, this bit right here. Then you want to go to general, and you don't have to go very far down. It's just going to be this bit right here called reticle. So I just have mine set to dot. I just have mine set to a white dot. Just some general tips before we start. Your larger and wider crosshairs are going to be better for tracking heroes, and then smaller, thinner crosshairs are going to be good for precision guns like hit scans like Widowmaker or McCree. You're going to want a nice little precision crosshair. And the first question you're going to want to ask yourself when picking a crosshair is the character I'm using projectile or hit scan? Now, hit scan means where you point and where you click, your bullet will hit on that same frame. Projectile heroes are where you point and click, your bullet will get there, but not on the frame that you click. It's going to take a little bit, so enemies are going to have time to move out of the way. But depending on what kind of hero you play, you're going to want to use different crosshairs. Now, for starters, you're definitely going to want a crosshair with a high contrast color. I'm talking your reds, your greens. Maybe you could get away with this kind of pinky color, but other than that, you're not really going to want like a yellow crosshair or a white crosshair or like whatever. I don't even know what this color is. That color would suck for a crosshair. You need high contrast colors that are going to pop out from the screen so you can easily see your crosshair at all times. So personally, I just prefer red. So let's just make my crosshair red. Now, after that, you're going to want to think about what type of crosshair do you want? Do you want a circle? Do you want crosshairs? Do you want a circle and crosshairs, or do you want the dot? I would say for almost every hero, what you're going to want to do is stay away from the circle and crosshairs. This thing is just big, it's ugly, it takes up so much of your screen. There's a few projectile heroes where these little crosshairs on the edge can actually be helpful, but that's kind of rare. Let's just go over this kind of just by role. If you're playing tank, you're probably going to want to go with the circle crosshair. Most of the tanks are going to benefit a lot more from the circle crosshair than with anything else, because as you can see, most of the tanks do not use regular hit scan weapons. We have Junker Queen, not really D.Va, because D.Va has a big like shotgun projectile type weapon, so you're going to want the circle for that. Reinhardt's melee, Ramatra is melee, and a little bit of a projectile weapon. The only hero that you could really argue has a super hit scan weapon is Wrecking Ball, and that's just barely hit scan. So for Wrecking Ball, maybe you pick something else. But for most of the tanks, what you're going to want is a circle. This circle is going to make it a little bit easier to hit projectiles, because projectiles, you don't have as much precision, so you kind of just want this circle to give you a range of where you're shooting. If you're into math and stuff, think of it like a probability field. If a character is inside of the circle, there is a good chance they're going to get hit. Since it's a projectile, you don't really know for sure because they have time to move. If you have like a medium-sized circle, there is a pretty good chance that if they're inside the circle, they're going to get hit. So that's why for projectile heroes and mostly just tanks in general, you're going to want the circle. The show accuracy, I would probably keep off. I think that makes it a little bit annoying and confusing and kind of like hurts your eyes a little bit. What you're going to want to do is probably get a center gap of about 70. That's going to work well for most heroes. Maybe for the shotgun heroes like Junker Queen or D.Va, you might even want to bump it up to like 100. For most of the heroes, you're going to want to keep it at around 70. This, I would say, is the perfect crosshair for tanks. You don't really have to mess with any of these other settings. Now, let's move on to DPS. So for DPS heroes, you kind of have two categories. You're going to have your hit scan DPS like Ashe, kind of Bastion, Cassidy, Soldier, Widowmaker, Tracer. For your hit scan DPS, you're definitely just going to want the crosshairs or just a dot. Personally, I prefer the crosshairs. I think it gives you a little bit better idea of what you're looking at. Now, for precision characters like hit scans, you don't really need that center gap. You don't need a dot at all, actually. I don't know why I don't know how to get rid of that stupid dot, but you're really going to just want to shorten this. All you need is just this little crosshair. For precision heroes, for hit scan heroes, there's no like probability field like there is with tank. It's just where you're aiming, that is where you're going to hit. You don't really need to give yourself as much room for error like you do with the tank. I would also probably just drop this dot size down to 2. If I could make it, can I just make it 0? I mean, the dot's kind of going to get in the way of where you're aiming. It's going to like get in the way of heads and get in the way of smaller body parts on the heroes you're aiming at. You're also going to want to keep your thickness down to a minimum. These thick, boxy crosshairs, same thing as the dot, it just gets in the way of what you're looking at. You're just going to want a nice, thin, clean crosshair, and that's going to help a lot with your precision. Now, for the second half of our DPS, Overwatch has a lot of projectile heroes. So that's going to be your Echo, Genji, Hanzo, Junkrat, Mei, Pharah, kind of Sojourn, Torbjorn, Symmetra, all heroes that don't use conventional weapons. So we kind of talked about this with the tank. This actually is a scenario where you're probably going to want to go with the circle and crosshairs. With DPS, you still do need that decent precision element, which is what we have our crosshairs for. So let's just get a nice kind of medium-sized crosshair going right here. This is going to help you get like a general range of where you're looking at with your projectiles. And then let's just get like a medium center gap as well. Let's just drop these crosshairs down a little bit. This, I think, will be the perfect crosshair for a lot of the projectile heroes. That's something I would use for Junkrat, Mei, or Pharah. Probably Echo as well. And then going even further into the projectile heroes, you're going to have your more precision-based projectile heroes. Hanzo, for example, Bastion, Sojourn. Those three are technically projectile heroes, but they do have a lot more kind of skill and aim related to them. I would say you're still going to want your circle with crosshairs, but you can just lower the gap down a lot. So now you still get this general like probability field of where your bullets are going to be, but you also get that precision element as well because you are dealing with a precision character. Now for Hanzo I would say is the one example of a hero where you should actually probably just use the default crosshair, because what you're going to see with Hanzo is his default crosshair is actually like really nicely custom made. It gives you a really good idea of where your arrow is going to hit depending on your bow charge. That does kind of make Hanzo unique from other characters. So your bow is fully charged, your crosshair is going to be right in the center bit right here, so you can just boom. But if you're just spamming and you're being a spam bot and you're being a noob, you're just, you're clicking your bow, you're going crazy, you have no clue what you're doing, then you might use the bottom crosshair. And you can just do this and you can spam your thing and not worry about it. And you don't have to worry about where you're looking because your crosshair is on the bottom. And then let's say you're getting rushed, you have your middle crosshair. If you only have time to charge up your bow just a little bit, and this crosshair can actually just be great for just generally learning the projectile drop on Hanzo's bow. So yeah, I rest my case. Hanzo's default crosshair is actually one of the best in the game. Now we're going to talk about support crosshairs. The thing with supports is you're going to have a lot more of the specialty characters like Moira and Brigitte. Do you really need a crosshair for them? Not really. So I would say honestly with Moira or Brigitte, what you're going to want to do is just go to this dot and just have it like this. Just have a tiny little dot. You don't even really need to see her crosshair. It's not that important because you can just click away. And Brigitte has a melee weapon, so you can just kind of generally look on your screen and see where the enemy is. Moira obviously has her no skill beam, so you're not going to have to do that much aiming with that. Zenyatta is going to be a really super precision projectile hero. So for Zenyatta, I would probably go with the dot. I just make it just a little bit bigger so you can kind of see. This is going to be a perfect crosshair for Zen. Little ball in the middle kind of matches the shape of the ball that you're throwing at your enemies. Kiriko is going to be just default crosshairs. You're probably just going to want to have an even smaller dot for her. This is going to be perfect for Kiriko, precision projectile hero. Mercy, I mean, seriously, you don't really need a crosshair for Mercy. Ana, I would say, also is just one of these. She does have the hit scan element when she's scoped in. When she's not scoped in, it actually is projectile, which a lot of people don't know. And then finally for Baptiste, yeah, I would probably just go with the same thing. So for Baptiste, Ana, Kiriko, and Zen, they're all what I would like to call precision projectile heroes. They're all going to need kind of relatively the same kind of crosshair. You need to have it a little bit wider because you are using projectile, but you do need the crosshairs for precision as well. Hey, I'm glad you made it this far in the video. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a subscribe. If you didn't enjoy, obviously don't. If you're a beginner and you're new to Overwatch, I do have a guides and tutorials playlist for you. I will put it up on the screen right here. Go check that out, and I will see you guys in the next video.